Hi, I'm Stuart from the Norfolk Honey Company and welcome back to my Getting Started in Beekeeping for 2017 series of videos. Today we're back at the allotment, having had a break last week to look at the swarm, and you can probably hear the chickens are clucking in the background. It's a lovely sunny day and we're going to get straight into the hive to see how the girls have been. I did inspect last week and they were doing fine, so it's just another weekly inspection. There have been several questions about how easy is it to find a queen, and so we'll show you how I scan to check for the queen. It obviously helps if the queen is marked, but if you have an unmarked queen, then I'll show you how I would look at a frame, and if you go through it in a methodical way, then it's fairly straightforward to find the queen. If you're not yet subscribed, please do consider hitting the subscribe button. We've got lots of videos now for you, and hopefully you're enjoying them and you'll stick with us for the rest of the summer. So let's grab the smoker and get straight into the hive. So that's the roof off, and we've got our feeder here which is empty. This is going to need a good wash, so we'll do that today. And let's see how the bees are doing. So this is one of the outside there. Even before we've started, I found the queen. So because she's got a yellow dot on her back, I've been able to see her straight away, and that's one of the benefits of having a queen marked. Okay, so we'll pop her back in. So she's on the outside frame, which is quite good because it means that probably she's looking for more space to lay eggs in. The bees are pretty calm today, so that's good. So this is the frame that we are hoping to move out. You can see that we've got a big slab of brood here, but the foundation isn't fitted into the frame properly, so we're moving this to one side. We've got one or two rudimentary queen cups that the bees are building and developing. So this one will get moved, pushed further out to the outside, and we'll just leave that one on the floor in front of the hive and move on to the next frame. So if we assume that we've not yet found the queen, the way that I would look for the queen is to bring the frame out, and as I bring the frame out I'm looking down and across the frame, because you'll sometimes see the queen as a slightly raised figure above the workers. So that's the first point. I then tilt it so that the base is away from me, and then I scan around the outside of the frame initially, and if I don't see her there, I then scan in a circular motion in towards the middle and the centre of the frame. I then turn the frame over and do the same on the other side, so a quick scan around the edge, and it takes literally seconds to do. We've got a rudimentary queen cup here, so I'm going to take that out, just drop that there for a second. So I'm still scanning across the frame in a circular motion and into the centre. Don't see her on that frame, so that frame can go back in. But we've got a good brood pattern here, lots of brood. We've got some nectar and honey stores being placed around the top of the frame, so that's all good. And we gently pop that frame back in, remembering to keep it close to our body so it gives us plenty of room in the brood box to carry out our inspection. Hive tool in between the frames and using it to pivot the frame away from the next frame. Again, out nice and gently and looking down and across, and I'm already scanning across the frame to see if I can see any sign of the queen. Another rudimentary queen cup here. So this one's actually got something in it, so this one actually has an egg in the bottom, so we'll cut that out completely. So it might mean that these girls are running out of space. But again, we've got lots of brood there, and the spaces that you can see, the empty cells that you can see, are actually where workers have emerged, and a lot of these have now been filled with pollen and nectar, and so these girls are getting to the point where it's quite possible that they're going to need a queen excluder and a super. So we're pretending that we still haven't seen the queen. So as I bring it up, I'm looking down the frame and then tilting it towards the camera, rotating it down and scanning again in a circular motion into the middle. We've got another rudimentary queen cup on this side, which I've just peeled the front open, and there's nothing in that one. We'll turn it over, and again, if this is your first colony that you've got and you've just started beekeeping, remember to take your time, not to rush, and to enjoy looking at your bees and seeing how they're working and starting to see some of the things that they're doing, such as waggle dances, identifying the difference between workers and drones. Again, hive tool in nice and slowly, easing the frame away from the remainder of the frames, out nice and slowly, again scanning for the queen. So on this frame we've got what we term brood in all stages. So brood in all stages means that we've got very young larvae that's just emerged from an egg, going all the way through to full-size larvae prior to it being capped, and then capped brood, which is then going to progress on to becoming emerging workers. So that's brood in all stages. And again, we'll check the frame. Because we've found a queen cell, we're going to check to make sure that we remove all the other potential queen cells. So we'll just peel the front off these. There's nothing in those. There's the start of a queen cell at the bottom there. And I'll just turn it over and we'll look at the other side. And again, on this side we have rudimentary queen cells, but again there's nothing in them, so we're okay with those. And you'll often find them down the side of the frames and along the bottom, and those are a good indicator that the bees are maybe running out of space and need more room. So gently back. Not that these not that these bees need a great deal of smoke, they're incredibly calm and they're a joy to handle. We'll just move these queen cups off here. And when you have bees like this, it's a really easy, pleasant hobby to have. Again, pretending to scan for the queen. I'm just pulling the front edge of these rudimentary queen cups open just so that I can see whether there's anything in them. Obviously if you're not filming it, it's a bit easier to take a closer look at them. But this frame is full of eggs, nicely loaded with eggs, ready to go. So in the fortnight that it's been since we last filmed, these girls have done really well. And I think we're almost at the point where we might well put a queen excluder and a super on them. Lots of eggs in this one. Again, scanning to try and find the queen. I'm just working my line of sight around the edge of the frame and then across and working into the middle, and I don't see her there. And as long as you're seeing eggs, there's absolutely no reason to have to see the queen. It's obviously nice if it's just one or two hives that you've got, and part of your enjoyment of your hobby is to actually be able to see the queen, then that's a perfectly good enough reason to want to see the queen. But you don't have to see the queen. So we're heading towards the outside frames now, and this one is predominantly stores. We've got rudimentary queen cups here as well. And then down to the last couple of frames. And this one's almost drawn to the bottom. The same on both sides. No brood in those, so that's just honey stores or sugar syrup that they've stored away. And then on to the last frame. So they're drawing the inside face, but they've not yet started on the outside face. So what I would tend to do is to just spin this one round and pop it back in, and that will encourage the bees onto the inner face. And so we've now been through the hive completely. That's looking really good, so we'll close them up. It's not taken us a great deal of time. So in order to close the hive, I pop my hive tool in the back edge and just lean forward on the hive tool. A little bit of smoke to encourage the bees away. And then you're moving all of the frames at once, and you're not crushing bees between the frames. And then a little bit of smoke at the end just to ease them away from the sidewall. Let's just see if the queen is still on this outside frame. And in fact she's still there, and so easy to see because she has a yellow dot. So as I lifted the frame out, I could immediately see the yellow dot moving around, and it makes it so much easier to see the queen. So we'll drop her back in nice and gently, and then we've got our frame that we want to remove, and that can go in at the very end. Now, having put it in like that, you'll notice that it's the wrong way round. So you can see that I've turned the frame, and when I'm looking down, we've got a high point just here on the frame, which is going to crush against the frame in front of it. So we're going to turn this around, and now it's the right way round, and the inner face of this frame is straight down and it's not going to crush against the other bees. Okay, so just to recap, we're using a hive tool just to push all of the frames across, and the reason we do that is to keep the bee space between the frames. We don't want to allow a larger gap to appear between the frames, because the bees will then fill that with brace comb and burr comb, and then when you do eventually put the hive back together and push the frames together, you'll end up crushing and squashing bees between the frames. So that's why we keep them all nice and tight and the right distance apart. So we just pop the crime board back on, making sure that we don't crush any bees. So number 20, and I'm going to just wash the feeder out because it's looking a little bit grubby inside, and then we'll top this up again with one more, perhaps two more fills, and then I think we'll have all of the brood frames drawn and we'll be able to then pop a queen excluder and a super on top. So we'll just pop the roof on so I can go and clean the feeder. Okay, so I think that was a really good inspection. The bees were super calm today, which is always a joy, and we were able to find the queen really easily. Hopefully you've now got the tools to be able to have a look round a frame and easily identify where your queen is, but it is practice. You just need to get in there and take a look each week, and as a beginner, while you're looking through your colony, it's always nice to be able to see the queen. You don't have to see the queen, as long as you've got eggs in there, then you know that she's present. But part of the joy of being a beginner beekeeper is being able to see your queen, and so I understand why you would want to check for the queen each time. So I think next time we'll probably be putting on a queen excluder and a super, so join us for that. We've also got our Facebook group, which is Stuart's Beekeeping Basics, where we've got more and more people joining in the conversation and asking questions and helping to answer those questions, which is fantastic. And don't forget, we've also got our Twitter and Instagram feeds. If you've not yet subscribed, please do consider subscribing. We've got lots of videos for you to enjoy, and hopefully you're finding them both informative and helpful. And finally, thanks to everyone that's been over and signed up to our Patreon page. I'll put all of the information down in the description below, and I appreciate everybody's help and support in allowing us to produce more of these videos. So we'll catch up next week when we're hopefully putting on the queen excluder and super, but until then, thanks for watching.